Well, hello and welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, where I bring voices and perspectives from people who are making a difference for children's learning and development. I'm Rachel Stewart, and I'm passionate about connecting with people to share experiences and learn from each other how we can best support children to thrive. In this series of the podcast, we're exploring successful leaders in education so you can learn from a diverse range of people what makes a successful leader and how you can take their learnings and apply them to your leadership. Today, I'm introducing you to Glenn Solomons, who is a leadership and learning consultant. Glenn works towards developing teachers and school leaders to create diverse and collaborative learning environments through a global learning platform for educators called Go One. In this episode, Glenn will share his journey from being a teacher and now leader in education, including leading projects with the Victorian Academy of Teaching and Leadership and the Professional Learning Institute in Tasmania. Glenn has held various positions such as Head of Department, Learning Leader and Senior School Leader in Catholic regional schools across Victoria. He's also delivered game design programs and loves working with teachers to enhance pedagogy, improve digital technology and promote meaningful assessment and feedback. Most importantly, he's passionate about building positive change cultures in schools. So I'd like to welcome Glenn Solomons to the podcast today. So how have you been? It's been taking us a while to find a date and
Yeah.
things coming up.
Good, busy. Got two young kids as well as work and lots of other bits and pieces. But thanks for the opportunity. But just lining up, kids getting sick and then school holidays and all those things, and then just the normal. It's like life admin that happens throughout, parenting and life in general as well.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I've raised three and they're almost, I've got one still left at school in year 11. So
awesome.
I'm almost done. So
yeah, I'm very much at the start of the journey. I got Ollie, who's in grade 3, and Liam, who's in grade 1. So, it's awesome, but just busy. So busy.
Yeah, it is. I often look back and I think, how did I actually do it? Seriously, I don't know how I did it. I just did it.
Yeah, it's like week to week. And sometimes I think it seems like yesterday when they were so little and now, but then at the same time, it seems like a long time ago as well. If that makes sense. It's just like a balance depending. You look at them and they're like little boys now. They're not babies. But yeah, it goes quickly. But then at the same time, week by week, you're like, is the weekend ever going to come?
Yeah.
Well,
I know. It's like Groundhog Day for a while, and then all of a sudden they're at school and everything even gets even busier because you're running them around and doing things after school and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah.
Never stops. I think my brother summed it up the best when he was talking about becoming a parent. He said, it's like a marathon that never ends.
That's a good way to put it.
There's no finish line.
No, yeah. I think it's just like milestones, isn't it? And then, no finish line in a good way. But there's always something.
Yes,
there's always something.
So parenting is quite different to teaching, I imagine, as well.
Yes, yeah. There's some similarities, I think, but it's definitely different. It's probably since moving like out of the classroom, it's sometimes I really miss it, like being in front of students. I only had, I think, when I was teaching like 3 years ago now, I only had 1 or 2 classes because of like leadership positions and stuff, but they were, depending on the time of year, the best times in like being in front of the kids. It felt a lot simpler. But yeah, sometimes I do miss like the subject area that I used to teach and things. Yeah.
And I guess we're going to be talking about that today. Really, is your journey through education and starting with teaching and then moving into leadership. And I think we just had a glitch. Then moving into leadership, and of course now you've left the profession, and I guess it's a hot topic these days, talking about the amount of teachers and leaders who are leaving the profession. And I really want to explore that with you today too, and just to show, I guess, teachers that there is life after teaching. Not that we want to discourage them from teaching, just to share your journey, but also, I suppose, the challenges that teachers are and leaders are facing in education and how we can try and help them and how you're helping them now actually with your new work. So I'd like to officially welcome you to the Creating Connections podcast. And perhaps you can start by sharing where it all started and how you became interested in becoming a teacher, because male teachers tend to move into the secondary space or
Mhm.
primary space, and we want to see more male teachers in the profession. So what encouraged you to become a teacher to begin with?
I think not originally I wasn't going to be a teacher. I started studying architecture at university, and I've always been interested in design and things, and art and design was always my favorite subjects at school. But yeah, I was thought, basically, parents like, oh, you don't want to go into design. You need to go into architecture to make more money. So that's why I moved into that space. But yeah, after a year or 2 years, really, I was just like, I do not enjoy this at all. And then kind of took like a bit of a gap year to decide. And during that time, I really reflected on like, what do I want to do? And I loved school. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved hanging out with my friends every day, obviously, but I genuinely enjoyed the subjects and the teachers. And I went to an all boys school in Mentone, St. Bede's College. And yeah, I loved my time there. And I thought maybe I'll be a teacher. I had some family friends who were teachers, and they kind of mentored me, I guess, or guided me towards that decision. But they said, do a Bachelor of Arts first, and then you can decide if you want to do your dip head after. So that's like my roundabout way into getting into education. But I think like the first time I did like teaching placement when I was at uni, I knew I'm like, this is me. Like this is what I want to be doing. One, because I was passionate about like my subject area and design and things, but genuinely I love helping people. And I remember teaching my first class and teaching students a concept of comparing two different artworks and writing about it.
Yep.
And I remember the click that I saw in students' faces, and it gave me goosebumps, and it continued to throughout my career. So anytime that I felt like I was helping or making a difference, I was like energized by it. And yeah, so that was it wasn't a thing like I know lots of teachers who always knew they wanted to be a teacher, but I was kind of, yeah, I went a roundabout way into getting into it. But once like with my first placement, I knew like this is, yeah, for me.
I really like that, how you, because I had the same conversation, or people telling me you can't use design as a career. That's not like a real job. And I didn't listen, and I became a graphic designer.
Oh, there you go.
But you've done it the other way around, where you've gone, well, I'm actually going to get into design, but I'm going to teach it instead. So you've
Yeah.
to do something that you love anyway, which is always a challenge, I suppose, choosing what career path you want to take.
Hmm.
And you obviously took a gap year to discover what that was. How
Hmm.
important is it, do you think, to take a gap year to, I suppose, do a bit of traveling and have a bit of life skill, and before you actually go into teaching?
Yeah, I think it is important. Look, and some people go straight into uni and they know they're driven and know what they want. Um, for me, it was like it felt like a big breath. Like I just needed that. I was pretty dedicated student at school. Probably stressed a lot about everything, like tests and exams and all those types of things. But it's because I cared so much, and I felt like, yeah, it just rolled on to the next year when I started studying architecture. And yeah, I just felt like I needed the breathing space to really think, is this actually what I want to do? I love houses and I love design, but do I love it enough to sit on AutoCAD and design a house on that? Like it's not just doing beautiful sketches. So yeah, I think it is important. I like worked at Safeway. I hung out with friends into music. So one of my friends is in a band. I'd go on tour with them and stuff like that. So it wasn't so much. It was traveling around Australia, but just doing the things that I liked, rather than my main focus being my education all the time. So it was important for me, but I understand, yeah, different for different people. But I think that breath after the stress of 13 years of school, depending on how much you care about school, but I was stressed, I felt like all the time. Yeah, to just take that breath and think, what do I want to do? And, how do I want to make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? So how did you move into secondary school teaching?
Yeah, during my placement, I had to do some volunteer work, and my now mother-in-law at the time was a primary school teacher, and I thought, oh, I'll go along and help her out a few days a week. And I very quickly realized that like primary school's probably not for me, only because I like they were awesome and cute and lovely, but it was too intense for me. That's what I thought, and I think also because of my interest in design and graphic design, as well, and art, I thought, well, I want to be in that space. Plus, I loved my art teacher in year 11 and 12. She was amazing, Miss McCormack. And so I think that connection to my experience, I thought, well, I want to create that experience for high school students, as well. So I think that's why. Um, yeah, I think lots of teachers, when I work with them, specifically primary school teachers, say, I don't know how you work in high school. And I always say, I don't know how you work in primary school. So, yeah, I think it's the subject area, but yeah, I'm not sure. It was just a lot. It was a lot. It was intense, and not in a bad way. But yeah, it just didn't sync up with me.
Wanted to have more of an influence on the older kids and of course encourage them to pursue a design career, which
Hmm.
yeah, is I guess things have changed now, I suppose. When I was younger, it wasn't necessarily encouraged, but there are a lot of kids now who want to do design and be creative. So, how important is it for you as an educator to encourage creativity and the arts in school, in secondary school?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think design in life in general, I think, is taken for granted. Like everything we wear, we use, has been, or we look at, it has been designed. And I think creativity is important. And lots of kids would come, if I had, when I taught year sevens, a year eight, oh, I don't like design, or I don't like art. I'm not creative. And it's just not true. Like everyone is creative. You might not enjoy the process as much as maths or English or other subject areas you do, but literally everything we do is designed and is being created and has been through the process of design. And I find it really interesting. Like design thinking is like a really popular idea. And it's more like when I started teaching, it was like this is the new thing, design thinking. And I always found it funny. It's like, well, we've been doing this process in the arts forever. And now
Long
that
time.
finally everyone else has just caught on. But yeah, I think it is. I think there's in a design process or creating an artwork, whatever it is, there's so many skills that you not just only to be creative, but like the perseverance of working on something, the process of getting something from an idea to a concept to like a final presentation. There's like that clear process. I think it's a really valuable thing because any job has projects that you work on, and it starts with an idea, and then there's iterations of that idea throughout. There's collaboration between different team members, for example. I think it teaches a lot more than just the specific skills, because not everyone has the talent, obviously, but everyone can have the skills. And I think that's a really important part of design. And I use design even in my role now. It's something that I do. So I think it is it is taken for granted. So I think it is an important part of life, really, is understanding that process.
Yeah, definitely. And how you actually think and create,
Yeah.
even just that process of coming up with the idea and then making it work, which is obviously how a lot of businesses are working now as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
Teams and all of that sort of thing. And being innovative requires you to have those skills.
Mm.
And I suppose that's sort of led you into the career pathway that you're taking now. But can you take us back to when you started to look into leadership in education and
Mhm.
whether a lot of the interviews I've done, there's been several different perspectives on how they actually moved into leadership positions. And some
Mhm.
people were tapped on the shoulder, some people just sort of fell into the role, it became available, and or someone actually saw leadership qualities in them. So how did it happen for you?
I feel like it was all of those things in a way. It so after my first year of teaching, I was kind of encouraged and tapped on the shoulder at the same time to say, there's a position coming up to be the head of art. And would you be interested? And I'd never thought of it.
Sounds like a
Um,
dream job to me.
yeah, yeah, it was. It was. There was, I think often educational leaders can sometimes be tapped on the shoulder because they're a great teacher. And then automatically they're like, well, you should be a leader. And then you think, well, I know how I feel pretty good about being a teacher. I don't know how good I feel about leading people. So yeah, I was kind of tapped on the shoulder and said, "There's this position coming up. Would you like it?" But also, yeah, to apply. Um, and that was by a former principal of mine, Kate Fogarty, from Assumption College in Kilmore. She's moved on to bigger and better things now. But yeah, she was kind of the first one to see it in me, really. Because I was quite happy teaching and being in the classroom. Um, I certainly liked leading little things, whether that be like a curriculum planning team and we're getting together the year 8 art team. What are we going to do next year? All those types of things. But yeah, it was someone else recognizing that I might have what it takes to be a leader. But yeah, when I got the position, I think from there I caught like the bug about leadership, and it has become a huge part of my life. Like it is, it it's driven me in lots of ways. It's taught me about myself, but that first opportunity was someone saying, "I think you'd be good at this." But I certainly made lots and lots of mistakes in my first few years, and I'm very open about the mistakes that I made, and partly because I needed to be taught how to be a leader. So there was lots of valuable lessons in that first year or two in the process as well.
Well, of course, ACK was my former school where my
Yeah.
design career started myself, actually. And I do know Kate. And when I was at ACK, the art department was tiny. There was only 2 rooms, and now, of course, it's enormous. And what an amazing
Yes.
facility that is!
Oh, it's great.
And to be able to manage that would have been like just an amazing opportunity. So, in terms of leadership mentors, obviously Kate, as the school principal, would have been a mentor of yours. But did you
Mhm.
have other mentors either at the school or outside of school who encouraged you and supported you even when you did make mistakes? Um, as we all do,
Yeah.
especially managing people, it's quite a different, as you mentioned, quite a different space to be in rather than just being in the classroom and managing
Mm.
students. But I guess managing students is like managing anyway and being a leader in the classroom. So
Mm.
how were you supported in that transition into leadership?
So Kate was a huge influence. Also, the deputy principal, Vaughan Cleary, was another big influence on me and a bit of a mentor. I also have my is interesting. My wife's mum's cousin, who is like a leadership coach, and that was Patrina, who I would check in with. She has had an amazing career, has done lots of different things as well, but she was that was like a person that I could check in with, like with an outside perspective from a because I think even me, like you get so obsessed by educational leadership, and obviously education has very specific ideas and principles and things, but ultimately you're leading people, and it's just a different context. So yeah, Patrina was a big one, and she was just a coach rather than a mentor about like asking the right questions and knowing that I know my context that I work in and all those types of things when I'm maybe debriefing about something that hasn't gone great or what should I do, for example. But yeah, she was another person. So yeah, Patrina, the huge one, but like that outside context, and Kate and Vaughan really as someone in the context to touch base with and maybe ask for more direction rather than purging my ideas and thoughts onto someone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's the difference between having support outside of education, where it's really just about exploring your personal development, would you say?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being able to bounce back when you do make mistakes, or working through thought processes and wondering where to go next. How important do you think that is to have someone outside of education to support you as a leader?
Yeah, I think really important, because yeah, the busyness of a school and the politics of schools and structures and things, all those things make an impact, obviously. But I think sometimes for me, it was um, maybe someone else having belief in me as well. Um, I think if I think of like my career as a whole, there I've never really thought of putting myself forward for things. That came a little bit later. It was more that you can do this kind of thing, the reassurance. And I think that's what I kind of needed from Patrina, just checking in. What should I do here? What do you think? And yeah, leaning in on the people aspect rather than the structures and the politics that sit inside a school. That was, yeah, it was just an important thing for me to check in on. And I guess in those first few years, for me, it was about building my confidence in doing it. Because a title, is one thing, but actually being able to do it is another.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that self-belief.
Yes, yeah, which yes comes easy for some, but yeah, that was something that I definitely worked on throughout the years is having that like I'm here for a reason, like I've been putting this for a reason, but just I think in those first few years there was, and every leader says this, there's that imposter syndrome. It's like why am I doing this? That feeling definitely was more prevalent. Oh, it still is, but it was like, especially, it was a big focus in those first few years.
Where do you think that actually comes from, that imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, that's a hard one to answer. I guess it maybe depends on your confidence levels, maybe as well, but also maybe how you got the position or suggested for it. Or maybe the touch points that you have with people where they maybe say inadvertently you'd be a great leader and all those things. If you haven't had those little moments and then all of a sudden you get this big one where you've been put into a leadership position, maybe that's where it comes from. But I think it's going to be different for different people. I was not a school captain or anything when I was at school, so leadership wasn't something that I ever really thought about. I was quite happy working in the background kind of person. And yeah, I think those touch points are what either build that up. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're given a position. And then, maybe as well that when you do start to think, I want to take the next step in leadership, you covet that idea or that position. And then when you finally get it, you're like, oh, I got it. But but should I? There's that self-doubt part that comes in, which I think is healthy in a way.
Do you think it's the perception that we have that you need to be some sort of leader first, like you mentioned, being a school captain, or have aspirations to be a leader, or have to work really hard to get to that position? Is that just a perception that we've been sort of led to believe that that's the case, or is it more that you just hadn't really thought about becoming a leader and it just happened to come across your path?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of work done in the leadership like research space about like what makes a good leader. And I think when I was at uni and when I was at high school as well, leaders were people who got up and spoke in front of people. That was like, your idea of a leader. It's the principal of your school. It's your level coordinator. And leadership was connected in my head as a teenager and as a young adult was leadership was connected with power. But I think as I've learned more about leadership, obviously there is some kind of power if you've been given a position, but leadership to me, I have learned over the years, it's about influence and how you build relationships with people to make things happen in a positive way. So yeah, I think it was what I thought a leader was compared to what it maybe actually is. That maybe uncovered that idea.
Yeah. So in terms of building relationships, does that come naturally to you, or did you need to do some professional learning around building relationships and having the skills to be able to do that?
I think at first, I think I'm good at building relationships. Like I loved my first team that I worked with. We got along really well. There was definitely some.
Sounds like you were very social at school as well. So
I tried to be. I think it came naturally in a way when I got into teaching. But I think when you hit those blockers is where you needed to upskill. So, for example, leading in my first position, there was a few members of the team who were far more experienced than I was. And there were definite moments where, we maybe clashed. And if I think back, sometimes I naively was trying to trudge ahead with things to get them done. But then there was, that imbalance of power that was maybe perceived in it as well. But I think genuinely, I think most teachers are good at building relationships. You do it every time you walk into the classroom. But I think it is definitely like when you're having to deal with those tricky situations or identifying the best ways to maybe build a culture. I think that definitely requires like professional learning or development or further study and things. And some things you do naturally as a person, and then you think, and you might read some research about it and then understand, well, I could get the culture here, but if I do X, Y, and Z, I can get it to here. Or do you know what I mean? So like just building that. I'm like, it's when my friends know what I do for a job and that I even like working all across Australia and doing lots of different things, they sometimes can't believe it because I was quite shy and timid at school. But I think in education, you kind of thrust into talking in front of people and building those relationships. It's it is a learned skill, but it's over many, many years for me to do it.
So do you see it as really essential to your own personal growth as well?
Yeah, definitely. Trying to be as open as possible. I think early in leadership, I definitely wasn't open to other people's ideas. It was like, I have my ideas for our team and how we're going to build a great art department and make it even better than it already is. And I think that's when the mistakes are made. And then you realize, well, I probably need to listen a lot more than get up on my soapbox and say what this is what we're going to do. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very important. But yeah, it's definitely something that's taken me time to build the understanding and skills to do it.
Yeah. And of course, you've seen a lot of changes over your career in your area of expertise around design and technology. So now that's sort of a passion of yours as well, digital technology. So how have things changed from when you first started teaching to now in terms of the knowledge and expertise that teachers now have to have in such a broad area,
Mm.
and really educating themselves around the newest technologies and how to teach them to students and learners, and how it impacts our lives so much now.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Like I think when I first started teaching, um, I kept like my lesson plans were in like a big planner, like a teaching planner. I'd write down what we're doing for each lesson, for example. Uh, um, and like it was what 2011 or 2012 when I started teaching. It was PowerPoint and all those things still exist. But it I think every year there was something new for us to learn, whether that be like a new learning management system, and then there's like updates to that. We're doing online reporting now, and it's continuous. Um, and then the school might go, oh, we're a Google school now. We're using Google Classroom, and now we've got to upskill in that. For me, as someone who, as you said, has like interest in design, you and learning, I loved it. So when there was something new and I felt like it was going to save us time or make us more efficient or create a really awesome, engaging lesson for students, I was always energized by it. Probably annoyingly so to other people, but it was just something that I'm interested in anyway. I've always been interested in technology and the arts and design. So Adobe Illustrator might have updates every few years and you're learning these new tools and things and you're really excited by it. So I kind of continued that into schooling. But I would say what I maybe leaned into a lot was helping others learn it. That's what I kind of got an energy for, helping adults as well as students. Like the AI explosion over the last couple of years. I'm not in a school now, but I hear the impact that is having, and it's whether we lean into it or lean away. It's this the interesting conversation that's kind of happening at the moment.
Yeah, it's a big topic of debate, I guess, and really understanding how to use it effectively, especially even in business. Like there's so many opportunities to use it in business now to save time and save money and all that sort of thing, but actually understanding how to use it effectively.
Mhm.
And I suppose the biggest challenge in schools is to teach children or young people how to responsibly use AI and discern information,
Mhm.
because we know that there's so much fake information out there now, and
Mhm.
it's really quite interesting to see it happening in front of our eyes, and really I suppose teachers and school leaders really need to be on top of it so much, and parents as well, uh,
Mhm.
to be able to educate our young people to know what it's about, and to not buy into a lot of it as well, but also not to resist it. And
Mhm.
that's the thing, isn't it? Not resisting change, but also being aware and responsible at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I think like what's sustainable change? Because I think and I think that's where maybe teachers get suspicious in a way that they've been hit with lots of new technologies and some of them haven't lasted. We always, joke about interactive whiteboards. They were like a huge thing.
Oh
They were
yeah,
going
I remember when
to,
they.
yeah, they were going to change the world, and they didn't. They ended up just being really expensive whiteboards. But yeah, I think yeah, it definitely is a challenge because it's here. So how do we adapt to using it? And I think sometimes I don't think banning it is the way to go because kids are very resourceful and so are adults.
They're already using it outside of school anyway.
Yeah, you can block it in school, but unless you're controlling their computers at home, like they've got access. So yeah, I think that it's important. It's like how do you use it ethically? And it's the same. Like it reminds me of design too, like taking inspiration from an idea rather than just copying it as well. So ChatGPT is great for that admin stuff that might save you some time. Is it going to write an essay for you? Yes, but you're going to be able to tell it's an essay written by AI as well. Unless you're very, very clever and know the right prompts. I'm not one of those people. But I think it's about, teaching everyone how to use it ethically, really. It's going to be a part of our lives. What can we, what are the guardrails in using it, I guess, rather than, banning it, which I just think is just pushing the problem down the road, really.
Yeah, and it must be frustrating for leaders to have to constantly convince teachers of the latest technology.
Yeah.
That's probably part of the leader's job is how do I get people to resist change? And this is the new thing that we're introducing into the school. So it must be just a constant challenge to try and shift perspectives and shift mindsets to actually embrace that new technology.
Yeah, I think teachers can smell something like if it's like just a gimmick rather than is this actually going to save me time? Is it going to make our lives easier? Is it going to improve the experience for our students? If it doesn't have those ideas, if you're not selling those ideas to it, if you're just like, we're moving to this LMS because we have to, we have to mark the role, but how is this new one? What does it do differently from the last learning management system that we used? So it's about, I think it's how you sell it. They're not in a snake oil salesman way, but like, how do you sell it in a way that, how is this, saving time? How are students going to benefit from it? They're the things that need to be really clear rather than we've paid $30,000 for a subscription to this service. Let's use it. It's, what does it do and how does it help us? Because ultimately, if teachers can see the benefit for students or themselves for their pain points, if I'm, for example, more often than not, people are going to get on board. It's just got to be authentic. Like, I think that's the key message to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess technology also provided opportunities for online learning as well.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's a huge area that people are going into now. And of course the pandemic saw us having to shift into online learning, which was in many ways lucky that we had the technology for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to continue schooling, even though that we know that there's been a lot of challenges around it and that children are still trying to catch up and trying to get back into normal schooling again. And so many changes have happened. So can you take me to that time where you were still teaching before the pandemic hit and just the transition into a new area over that period? And I guess it was a time where everyone sort of stopped and thought about their lives, and we were able to actually stop for a moment and really reflect on, okay, is this really what I want to keep doing in my life? Am I happy? Is it time to make some changes? And so many people changed their lives during that time, you being one of them.
Yeah. So, in Victoria, I was in regional Victoria then. Moved into remote learning. And as scary as, that time was for everyone, enjoyed is probably the wrong word, but I enjoyed to help. No, it is. Yeah, I liked helping the people transition. So it was a big, like all of a sudden, lockdown's happening, remote learning's happening. All of a sudden, we've got 200 staff who have to learn how to do this online. So my colleague and I, Karen, who I work with in my job now, and we've worked at two schools together previously, we kind of pivoted to think, well, what can we do to help people? So we set up like a help desk for people and a website, a Google website to help so people could book in and get some help from Karen and I to coach them through Zoom and all the Google Classrooms and Google Meets and all these types of things. So that was a period that again, a theme in my life, really, that I love helping people. So that was an opportunity to do that during that time. What I enjoyed about it was our world became very small in my little family unit. We were all at home together. I was lucky enough to be able to work remotely. My kids were at home and my wife as well. So we were all home. And I think during that time, I relished the being at home with the kids because quite often I'd be leaving before they get up and I'd get home from work and it's bath and bed and all those types of things. So during that time period, as tough as it was, not seeing friends and all those types of things, the smallness of being really present with my family just made a huge impact on me and my life. And I thought about that time that you just don't get back.
Especially when they're young.
Yeah, they're so little and for not very long. And that just it made me think a lot. And I enjoyed teaching and I loved education. Remote learning was, I taught a game design class and visual communication design. My students turned up and they wanted to be there, so I was very lucky. And we kind of built our little online culture. We kind of carried it into an online space. But I think, that ability to do that energized me a lot. And when we came back on site to school, I felt like there was lots of lessons in that. For schools, that we know we had less meetings, or when we did meet, we met online, and all those types of things that were freeing up people's time and day to do the things that maybe the planning or whatever they need to do, or having that coaching conversation with a staff member. Suddenly all those things could happen. And when we moved back on site, I felt like it was all forgotten. It's like business as usual.
Yeah. And
that was really disappointing because I was excited by the opportunity for teachers, but also for students of, why can't they do one day of remote in year 11 or 12? Like, there was so many possibilities. And I felt like, particularly where I was, it was just like, back to business as usual. But how I transitioned into like what I'm kind of doing now is it just lent back into that space of helping people and like leading professional learning. And that was something that was my favorite part of the job, helping people, but also getting up in front of staff and leading some PL on an area that they might need help with, or an area that I've been tasked to help staff with. And maybe, but I love the whole process of doing some research, putting together a presentation, and then getting up and executing it, just like a lesson for students. Yeah. But there was the difference with students and teachers, I found, is that students generally, depending on the time of year, were pretty open to learning something new. Whereas I think because of the climate in education or personal circumstance, all those things, teachers maybe can be less so, myself included. It's like, oh, here we go, here's something else kind of thing. But I enjoyed the challenge of that, of working with adults and helping them. Then a job opportunity came up. I saw it online. I think it was on LinkedIn, with EC, and I'd read Dave and Aaron's book before, Edupreneur. I'd read it. It was a great book, and I recognized the names and then spoke to someone who I sat next to in our leadership office and said, what do you think of this job? And they like kind of read through like what you'll be doing, and they said, that's perfect for you. That's like all the things that you like. And yeah, so I decided to throw my hat in the ring.
And it's come to fruition. And can you explain a little bit more about EC by Go One and what it's all about?
Yeah. So, well, it's the journey for me is different to like Dave and Aaron who started it so long ago. But so when I joined EC in 2021, they were a like professional learning organization. So they'd run professional learning programs, particularly for leaders, but school teachers across Australia and the world. And the idea was running like things like leadership programs, consulting work with schools. When I started, I was partnered with 12 schools in New South Wales to help them with their strategic planning and putting forward and helping them with initiatives that are happening at their school. And then throughout that was the first 6 months. That was a big part of my job. All of a sudden, yeah, delivering professional learning and doing leadership training.
Oh, we just froze.
Yeah, I'm just
It happens on windy days for some reason.
do you
So
want me
you're
to start?
training?
Sorry?
You were doing leadership training?
Yeah. So leadership training like for middle leaders in Tasmania. That was like one of the first projects I was put on. But so that like again, it was something that I thought, yeah, I'll throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. But so during that time, I was upskilling in talking in front of people, not staff that I knew, but people I don't know, and that was a big thing to all of a sudden learn. But again, EC's mission was really helping schools and school leaders be better versions of themselves. So I really aligned to that. But in the first 6 months, it was, face-to-face consulting and leadership program delivery for departments across Victoria. And then in 2022, come back after our Christmas break. That was a tough thing to transition from not having school holidays anymore. That was hard. And then so came back after a short break, a couple of weeks, and Dave, Aaron, and Maddie, who are, the core members of EC, had said, we've been acquired by another company, Go One. I had really admit I'd not heard of Go One before, but why they did it and interesting is basically it was funny actually when I had my interview, Aaron had said, we've got this cool idea. It's kind of like Netflix or Spotify for professional learning. And I thought that's a really interesting idea. And then fast forward 6 months, this is why they joined Go One. How can they democratize professional learning for staff and for school staff across Australia and the world? And Go One was going to be the platform to support us to do that. So, it was a big transition. Was like, it was like you're going to do your leadership consulting job, and now we've got this other arm of what we do, which is the online learning component, which was a whirlwind, really.
But how exciting being able to work with passionate entrepreneurs who are visionaries and they have a vision for supporting educators worldwide with their professional learning and being a part of, I guess, the start of that journey and how far it's come now. And like
Mm.
grown so much since then. And I only just came across it a couple of years ago as well when I was approached to do a mini course on there. And what an amazing platform and an amazing experience actually whoop, an amazing experience as a professional myself to be able to have
Mhm.
that to create a course and put the course on there. So not only are they providing opportunities for educators, but they're also providing opportunities for people who have a lot to share and a lot of experience to share with teachers and school leaders. So it's just fantastic. And it shows how the online platform technology has come so far
Mm.
in these types of jobs now. So it's exciting.
Yeah. I said to I think when like Dave, Aaron, and Maddie told us like what when we were transitioning from ECDC by Go One, I said I feel like Stephen Bradbury. Like I came in the last 6 months, and then all of a sudden we went on this journey together.
Felt it.
Um, but it's yeah, and I think that the mission. I think what I probably connected with the most with Dave, Aaron, and Maddie as well is their just willingness and unwavering support for educators, and how do we support people even more? And it's yeah, I think I remember when I had my had an interview with Dave and Maddie and Aaron online. And then I caught up with Dave in person. We had breakfast, and straight away, you should get Dave on one day. He's a good a good yarn, but he's just got so much energy and passion for helping people, and that's probably what I connected with. But yeah, that's been unwavering in what he does as well. So yeah, it is a really awesome platform, and it helps so many people. And now a big part of my job is still doing that leadership program delivery and all those types of things, but it's also helping organizations develop a learning culture where we're a tiny piece of the puzzle that kind of sits alongside the great work that they already do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you seeing across the platform now? What sort of learning you're seeing is the most sought after, I guess,
Mm.
that
Yeah, I think it.
I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think it might depend on the time of year, depending on what people are looking at. But I think like the most, I would say, like the things that people are energized about, like a lot of the AI stuff. Whenever we put anything to do with AI and education, that gets picked up pretty quickly. We've got lots of stuff on educational leadership. Lots of the EC content that was being delivered face to face is also being turned into online courses and things, and they're great things as well. But also, um, like, and I'm probably saying this because I worked on it. I was lucky enough to work on it with him. It was Dylan Williams' work is very popular. Also, we have the University of Melbourne on there as well, so lots of their courses as well. Yeah, it depends on the person, I think, and their position and the time of year. I think if like start of the year, lots of schools will have new initiatives and they'll find learning that aligns with that, whether it be we're going to improve our feedback practices. Here's Dylan Williams' course on feedback. Yeah, I think it depends on time of year. Maybe like, you're in the midst of reports, you might do a bit something on managing yourself and your time and things like that as well. But I think where this platform is really useful is that it is that learning at each person's individual point of need. So it may be building relationships with kids in the classroom, or it could be, I feel like we should have a parent platform as well with some of the things that parents will probably really would support them as well. How to how to build relationships with kids in the classroom, whether it's restorative practice or whole school culture and things like that. So yeah, I think that's the beauty of the platform, that it is keyed into a school's needs or a person's needs, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fantastic. And yeah, great to be a part of it. But yeah, I'm sure I can help you with the parenting side of things.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really interesting to hear your story, and such an amazing journey from becoming a teacher and not really knowing that you wanted to be a teacher to then the leadership and exploring your passion for design and technology, and now being able to apply it in your new role and have that nice work-life balance as well with your
Mm.
family. So really amazing to talk to you today and for you to share your story and to show the breadth of experience and opportunities, I suppose, in education, but also once you have left the profession of education, you're still in it
Yeah.
in a different learning environment, and how you can apply those design thinking skills, everything you do really, and really just continuing that. So yeah, so thanks for being here today and sharing your story.
No worries. Thanks for having me. And thank you for the work that you do too to support parents. Very, very important.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll be in touch to continue to collaborate, and yeah,
Yeah.
to seeing more of the Go One EC by Go One work as well, and trying to get that out there as well. So thanks
Awesome.
too with my course.
Cheers.
All right, I'll speak to you soon. What another inspiring interview in our Leadership in Education series of our Creating Connections podcast. If you enjoyed this interview and would like to learn more from other leaders in education, please click on the subscribe button to receive further podcasts on your feed. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, click on the link below to book a meeting with me to learn more about you and your leadership in education. Or if you're listening to this podcast, send an email to rachel@practicallylearning.com.au to express your interest in being on the podcast. If you are a school leader or teacher with aspirations for leadership, but you're challenged with self-doubt, overwhelm, and whether you have what it takes to take that next step, our Connect with Your Mind Mastery Coaching Program can support you to work on your own self-mastery to become the leader you aspire to be. For further information about our coaching and professional learning programs, please visit our website at practicallylearning.com.au or click on one of the links below and visit our podcast for our future series of interviews to support you as the adults who are guiding children on their learning journey. I do hope you enjoy the rest of our episodes on our Creating Connections podcast, and I hope to meet you soon.